There are two primary reasons why we are involved with the CamEO initiative. Firstly, I think for us to understand how we work more effectively as a multi-stakeholder operation. It's a fairly new thing for us, but when it comes to water, it's exactly how we have to operate. The second one is for us to understand and learn and share good practice between our fellow collaborators and what we can bring back to the businesses about water sensitive farming, because we're not experts, but collaboratively we've got a lot to learn.
Produce World got involved with the CamEO partnership because we have an interest in understanding how we're using water across our operations, whether that's within our pack houses for washing carrots and potatoes, or whether that's within our growing systems that underpin us for irrigation and other uses.
The National Farmers Union represents the vast majority of farmers that are within the CamEO catchment, and so it's imperative that we are involved in the catchment so that we can let them know what's going on, but also be a voice for them in communicating with the other partners that make up the partnership.
We are involved with CamEO because the majority of the water that we abstract comes from the Chalk Aquifer to the south and east of Cambridge, which lies in the CamEO catchment.
Anglian Water has a fundamental role in CamEO in that we are a co-host alongside the Rivers Trust. We saw an early value in taking the hosting role of one of the catchment partnerships and took the initiative in this particular area.
I think our driver for being involved in the CamEO partnership is really one of wanting to really understand the bigger picture, see the bigger picture, but understand how we can influence it, both from a positive point of view, hopefully a positive point of view, but also understand any negative impact that we might have in any way, shape or form, really. And it's getting all the issues out into a forum or a group or an environment where we can discuss them on a wider basis to understand them.
The value in promoting a catchment approach is because we work with farming. Farming is not just a single crop. We work with rotations across whole farm businesses, and that involves working in much larger areas than the remits of our sugar beet fields. And that's really important for us that we take that approach.
The catchment-based approach is really the way forward. I think individually we all have very similar problems. Collectively we're all trying to achieve the same things. So we're all trying to maximise particularly water use in terms of how it impacts our business, but how can we use it the most efficient way through our business without having the minimal impact on the environment and ecology around us, but also making sure that water resource is sustainable and there for the long term, really. So I think looking outside of the business parameters, engaging with other businesses, other stakeholders in the catchment is really important, so that collectively we can come up with solutions to what are our sort of common problems.
So we've done a lot of projects in the past around water use efficiency and how we're using water within our systems, but our recognition is that there's only so much that we can do within our organisation, and partnering up with other organisations with challenges similar to ours or that kind of align with ours is something that we're keen to do. A catchment-based approach is all about that, is all about recognising that there's challenges that cut across organisations, that cut across different kind of spatial areas, and that we need to be working collaboratively to respond to those. That's something that we see as important to address and to promote.
The value of the catchment-based approach is it brings together all the different players that can articulate all the different pressures that the water environment we work in faces. Farmers have their own concerns about water availability and water quality, but there's lots of other players that have demands on the water environment as well, and by being part of a catchment-based approach we can work together at a time when resources are limited and we have to maximise the benefits for everybody.
Of the issues that we face in Anglian Water, a lot of them require us to either work with our customers or with external partners, external stakeholders. The catchment-based approach is a great platform for us to really make the most of that. It just in its nature, it brings together stakeholders from local interest groups, communities, businesses, and it allows us to have those conversations across multiple levels.
The value that we see in promoting a catchment-based approach is the evidence and data that the various sectors can bring to the table. We can deliver projects that have multiple benefits for less resources, which ultimately delivers better value for our customers' money.
So I think main water challenge for us, obviously sitting in the CAM and ELUs, is one of, primarily for us it's availability, a question mark over long-term availability, which is linked to the sustainability of the catchment. As a business manager, you know, I have to put forward capital proposal projects to our board of directors, and when we're looking at multi-million pound projects that are looking for 5, 10, 15 years payback or longer on the investment, then it's really important for me to understand how available each of our individual resources are going to be over that period. So really long-term business planning, water availability and security is an integral part of that policy process.
The main water focus is for us in our business, as whilst we need water for our factories, the main focus is in water for production of our crops. And depending on our geography, those pressures are greater. But even here in the UK, and the catchment area we're talking about here, is we know water is becoming more limiting for our yields. We already estimate that we're probably losing 10 to 15% of our yields due to water shortages. So we need to really understand how, looking forward with the threat of climate change and probably more volatile rainfall, how we manage that at a catchment level to make sure we get resilience in our crops and protect yields going forward.
The NFU wants to make sure that farmers have a fair share of water because our nation's food supply depends on it. And in the catchment-based approach, we can look at both the issues of water resources, but also importantly water quality, and make sure that we get the balance right in terms of the activities that we promote and that our members are able to carry out through working with the catchment-based approach. Funding is limited, and so we can bring something to the table along with the other partners as we look to maximise water availability and water quality.
So our role within CamEO and our main kind of focus areas are understanding how most effectively to share best practice across growers. So where we have examples of really excellent irrigation use, we look at how those practices are built up and developed and embedded, and then sharing those across, and equally looking to raise awareness of water use within agriculture and within the production of food, and how fundamental water is to producing food that ends up on our supermarket shelf, and using the catchment-based approach to demonstrate how that then links into the landscapes that we live in.
The main water focus area that we have at the moment is the rising nitrates in our groundwater sources. The nitrates have been rising steadily over a number of years, and at a number of our sources the nitrates have now gone over the allowable limit, and we've had to start looking at treatment. Now we have to reduce our treatment because it's not sustainable and it isn't delivering the best value for our customers' money. So we are looking at a programme of catchment management where we would aim to reduce the pollution at source. By working with CamEO, we can engage with a lot of the other sectors for that.
Water is really the fundamental resource for everything we do at Anglian Water, whether that be treatment for customer supply or the recycling of water through our water recycling centres and back into the environment. It really does make up everything we do. So if we consider both water quantity and quality, we need to ensure that our raw water coming into us from the rivers is of high enough standard so that we don't have to burden our customers with very expensive treatment. And then B, we need to ensure that the water that we give back to the environment is of great quality so that it doesn't affect the receiving water. One of our key areas of interest currently is the pressure that we are faced with pesticides. So there are certain agrochemicals which are extremely difficult to treat, and our standard treatment works do not remove these. The alternative for customers is an extremely expensive treatment process to reduce these pesticides down to minute levels, when really what we should be doing is looking to source to work with the farmers to actually stop these pesticides getting in the water in the first place.